He doesn't know what he's getting into right now.
Oh,
Done
yes,
my
I
homework. We've got more questions than we know what to do with. We met this week on Zoom.
Yes.
And unbeknownst to me, this week alone, I don't even know how many frequent flyer miles you've gotten this week alone, but tell us about this week alone and where you're going after this.
Well, I was in Dallas on Wednesday. I was in Vegas yesterday. I'm here today. I'll be going home tomorrow at 5 a.m., and then I leave for Europe on Tuesday. So,
all right.
But it's kind of a normal series of events.
And on top of that, if you don't know, he's got like a channel. I've watched, I don't know how many hours, but probably 12, 14 hours just trying to get to know you virtually before we sit down and talk. And right. I've been impressed with his family, with his vision, with his clarity. And I think, just to have, to start at the deepest spot that I could, I just want to dive into the deep end first. What is your favorite mob movie? What is that?
Well, this is going to come as a surprise because most people think...
If you say Little Mermaid, I'm going to be stunned.
No, it won't be Little Mermaid. But many people think it would be Goodfellas, which was a good movie. It was fairly accurate. But the best mob movie, in my opinion, that was ever done was the 1996 Gotti movie that was on HBO with Armand Assante and Anthony Quinn. And brilliantly acted. I mean, a lot of these films are brilliantly acted, but that one was just... Because I knew Gotti, and Armand he just nailed it. And it was very accurate because most of the script was written based upon the surveillance tapes. And that was my era, so I knew what was going on, and it was just a great movie. And I became very friendly with Armand because I always plugged that movie. He loves it, even HBO.
Do they give you like royalties now?
No, they don't give you, no. I'd have to take that from them, but no, they don't. Yeah, it was a great movie. But Goodfellas, fairly accurate. I mean, I knew all those guys pretty well. Obviously, Casino was another good one. Anything that Scorsese does with, that cast is amazing. And what else? And Bronx Tale was good. I liked that a lot. I thought that was Chaz Palminteri's best role when he played Sonny. He's a good friend also. So there's some good ones.
Now, thanks for sharing that. And is there, I'm starting to light on this stuff, is there a book other than the Bible that has been impactful for you, whether as a young man or post-conversion? Has there been a book that's been really meaningful, powerful?
All of, his name just escapes me now. Case for Christ,
Lee Strobel?
Lee Strobel, who I know well. His books have had, I'm very much into evidence. My faith is based upon evidence that I believe is rock solid. And I've told people this all the time, Pastor. I'm not the best Christian in the world, that's for sure. I have my issues, but my faith is rock solid because I believe the evidence is overwhelming. It's become very clear to me over the past 20 some odd years. And, so books that, verify that for me, I'm always looking for verification. Evidence has been a major part of my life, so I'm always looking for evidence. And, I always tell people, you're not selling me the Brooklyn Bridge when I'm paying attention. I want to see the facts and I want to know. And Christianity is just rock solid.
Oh, man, I love it.
That's it.
Thanks so much. Tell us a little bit, because I know probably in fifth grade, you're probably not like, I want to be a capo regime in the Colombo crime family. It's probably not you're kicking a ball in a kickball game. So growing up, where did this whole career in organized crime, how did that come to pass?
Well, my dad, Sonny Franzese, was the underboss of the Colombo family back in the 60s. And my dad was probably the highest profile figure of that era, kind of like the John Gotti of his day. He was always under investigation, always a major target of law enforcement. I grew up hating police, hated law enforcement, hated the government, because I loved my dad. He was my hero, my idol. And I always saw they were around us all the time. My dad had constant investigation. We had 6 or 7 agencies parked around our house all the time. They followed us, so I hated them. And but I didn't want to be part of that life. I was going to school, I was going to be a doctor. And people have said to me, Michael, what did you want to be growing up? If I had a choice, I want to be playing center field for the New York Yankees. Mickey Mantle was my idol back then also in sports. So I had no interest in being involved in the life. But things changed for me when my dad drew a 50-year prison sentence when I was 19 years old, and everything changed at that point.
Do you want to share a little bit about that, or is that more of your testimony time that you'll share?
It is, but I can get around that in my testimony, move around. But yeah, my dad was indicted 3 times in the state of New York, twice for grand larceny, once for murder. So he was in and out of prison throughout my childhood, and he was acquitted on all 3 of those cases. But then in 1966, they indicted him in federal court for masterminding a nationwide string of bank robberies. He eventually goes to trial, he gets convicted, and he gets a 50-year prison sentence.
And how old was he at that time?
My dad was, when he started his time, he was 50 years old. Oh, so 50 on top of that, I figure he's going to die in prison. It's a death sentence. So Joe Colombo, who was the boss of our family, he kind of took me under his wing. I knew the family well. I started to meet, a lot more of my dad's friends, but they talked to me differently. These are guys I knew my whole life. Michael, if you don't help your father, he's going to die in prison. So I went to see my dad, and I said, Dad, bank robbery? Doesn't sound like you. And he looked at me, and he said, son, I'm innocent. I'm no bank robber. I was framed on this case, and we got to work to overturn this conviction. And that changed everything for me. And I said, look, I'm not going to school anymore. I was a pre-med student. I just entered Hofstra University. I said, I'm not going to school. If I don't help you out, you're going to die in here. And that's when he looked at me and he said, okay, but if you're going to be on the street, I want you on the street the right way. And in his mind, the right way was to become a member of his life. So he proposed me for membership at that point. Because, you can't just go up to somebody and say, hey, I'd like to join. What do I have to do, Somebody has to propose you and vouch for you and say you have what it takes. And there's a lot of nepotism in that life. And a lot of fathers bring their sons in. And so my dad was the one who proposed me.
And you were right at 19, 20?
I was 20, just about 21. Just turned 21, yeah.
All right. And so tell me, what's the most unexpected aspect of being there? Because obviously, if you didn't know, until your dad's telling you, if you didn't know all the things maybe he had been accused of, you knew people floated around, but
well, yeah, I mean, I knew.
What's the most unexpected thing about being in the mob?
Well, I knew my dad was, had a different lifestyle, obviously, but we never got into detail. The night, and I can share this with the men. I don't like to do it when ladies are around, but when when he talked to me that day, that's a secret life. And people think when you take the oath, you take an oath to lie, steal, kill, murder. That's not the oath. The oath of omerta means silence. You're never even supposed to admit that the life exists. Silence, total silence. And so when my father proposed me, he didn't say, okay, this is what you got to do, and this is what the life's all about. He didn't say a word to me. And he never talked about that life. My dad, if he was anything, he was a good soldier. So he just asked me one question, and guys, I'm going to be bluntly honest, because you got to understand what God has brought me in my life. He looked at me and he says, Michael, if you had to kill somebody, could you do it? And I thought about it for a minute. I was never asked a question like that. I'm 19, 20 years old. And I said, yeah, Dad, if the circumstances are right, I can do it. He said, that's the right answer. Go home and do what you're told. Somebody will be in touch with you. That was it.
Wow, man.
So it was kind of, from that point on, it's on-the-job training, as to what you got to do. And I spent about 2.5 years as a recruit doing whatever I was told to do to prove myself worthy until I finally got made.
How old were you when you became a captain? And that's a capo regime? Is that what that?
Capo regime.
Yeah, my Italian is really rusty. I grew up in
I'll forgive you
southern Italy, just Chattanooga.
Yeah. I got it. You're not the only one that struggles with that word. That's okay. But it's capo regime is the...
Capo regime.
Yeah.
Pasta.
Capo.
Pasta fagiolo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It means captain, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you became a captain?
Well, when I got straightened out, I was 24, and that was in 1975, and then I was appointed a capo regime in 1980, 5 years later.
And how big was your army, so to speak, the soldiers beneath you? How many did you have?
Well, I had a lot of associates, the guys that were around the life, but they weren't made. They didn't take the oath. At the height of what I was doing, I had about 300 guys under me. I had probably 14 or 15 that were my close crew, and then we had a lot of other guys around because I had a pretty big operation at that time.
And loyalty is a big deal. So Gotta
Well,
figure that.
loyalty is stressed. You know, it's a life allegedly of honor and respect. And, but, you know, it didn't turn out that way. I think obviously people know what's happened to that life in the last several years. But yes, I mean, it's a brotherhood. I got your back, you got mine. You know, when I took the oath that night, it was very exhilarating for me. It was very powerful. I'd worked hard to get there. I was now part of something my dad was part of. You know, we shed blood in that regard, and it meant everything for me. I mean, it was very important. And, you know, I think, guys, you understand this. There's nothing more powerful than a brotherhood among men, you know, other than marriage, but that's different. But, you know, I was told, hey, wherever you go in the world, somebody's going to have your back. Don't ever worry about your mother, your sister, your wife, your daughter. Nobody will ever hurt them. You have brothers around you. And so that's very powerful. And, you know, it was very meaningful to me. And so, you know, I mean, you get into that kind of mentality, and it's, you know, I was told when you take that oath, well, when I got proposed, they said to me, Michael, from now on, you're on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If your mother is sick and dying and you're at her bedside and we call you to service, you leave your mother, you come and serve us. From now on, we're number one before anything and everything. And when and if we feel you deserve this privilege, this honor to become a member, we'll let you know. So, you know, you're supposed to put that life before everything. But it's an interesting thing, and I don't want to keep talking because I have nothing to say later on, but, you know, Chaz Palminteri and I are good friends, and he had in the movie The Bronx Tale, if you recall, he's kind of tutoring or mentoring little Colosio. And Colosio says to him, is it better to be loved or to be feared? Now, he's a mob boss, right? And he turns around to Colosio and he says, it's better to be feared in this life. And so when I got friendly with Chaz, I said, Chaz, you made that statement. Is that what you believe? You believe it was better to be feared? He said, absolutely. I said, you're wrong. He said, why? I said, I'll tell you why. I said, fear did keep people in line because you knew if you made a mistake, you could pay the consequences and they could be serious. I said, but what happened in that life, what happened in my life, is that the fear of the mob was transferred to the fear of the government when they brought the RICO Act in. Because RICO, hey, you're going away forever. We're going to take every penny that you got, unless you want to talk to us. You want to talk to us about this guy? We'll put you in witness protection. We'll give you whatever you need. They're going to jail anyhow. Don't worry about it. We'll give you a new identity and all that kind of stuff. So the fear of the government became more powerful than the fear of that life. So the fear was transferred. When you love somebody, you're not going to hurt them. At least that's how I feel. So my life, my former life, was basically destroyed because of the RICO Act. A lot of people say Gotti did it because he was outspoken. Gotti didn't destroy the life. A lot of guys acted like Gotti. He was the most prominent, but Joe Colombo was that way. You know, there was guys that acted that way. They were out there. It was really the RICO law that destroyed that life. And I had 3 RICO indictments, so I know.
Wow.
3.
So taking that, and I was reading an article, I think it was in Vanity Fair magazine from like 1991 or something like that. Your brother, I guess John Jr., turned evidence. I know you all were separated, obviously, for quite a while. He went into witness protection program, but tell us about that relationship now. Tell us about how do you forgive, or how do you work on forgiveness with someone when they feel like they've betrayed you or wounded you? So speak into that if you would.
Well, he's my younger brother. He's 9 years younger than me, and he had a severe drug problem. And I can't even be, you know, I hate anything to do with drugs. I had a sister that died of an overdose. My brother was a drug addict for 20 some odd years. And I can honestly say I did more damage because of my brother than I did because of that life. Because he was always in trouble, just trying to keep him alive. If it wasn't for me, him being my brother, my father's son, he'd have been dead a long time ago. So it was a lot of headaches with him. And then eventually he disappeared. And at first I thought, okay, somebody got him, he's done. But then we found out that he had cooperated with the government. He was in a witness protection program. And it was shocking, quite honestly. But he tried to hurt me, but he couldn't. But he did hurt my dad. He testified against my dad in a case. He got my dad his parole violated again. And, but quite honestly, I love my brother. You know, I practically raised him. You know, my dad was away. He was 9 years old. My dad went to prison. And I loved him. And I understood we had a very turbulent childhood. And I know that my dad's being away really impacted him and my sister and my mother. And, you know, my younger sister, another one died young. So, I mean, it was very rough. But it was hard for me at first to forgive him because that's the ultimate betrayal, you know. And but after a while, I didn't speak to my brother for many years. When my dad went to trial, my dad was out on parole again for the 5th time. And he got indicted during the parole time. And I said, Dad, what are you doing? And then I didn't realize it was my brother that was wired up against my father. And they had bad conversations and meetings. So when my brother was testifying on the stand, I was in the courtroom. I couldn't believe it. It was just hard. But, you know, after a while, after probably 4 or 5 years, he contacted me. I didn't know where he was. And we've patched it up now. I mean, I've met with him, and I just really felt the pain that he had gone through. I don't justify. I said, John, I'll never justify what you did. I'm sorry, I can't. But who am I to judge you? You know what you went through. And so we patched it up, and I do see my brother now, and he can't go back to New York, but it's sad. It's really sad.
And is he clean and sober now?
He's clean, yeah. He's been clean for over 12, 15 years now. He actually runs a drug rehab center. I said, are you sure you want to be around that? He said, no, but I've, yeah, I've actually been in touch with the people that own the center because I was checking up on it. They said he's doing a great job there, and he's very dedicated to it now. He's really kind of turned his life around. I've certainly ministered to him, and he's accepted the Lord. So
praise the Lord.
Yeah. So, but it was a rough situation. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, let's clap. Yeah, I think forgiving loved ones that betray us, I think that's at the heartbeat of the gospel in so many ways that.
Well, you know, Pastor, I think the 10 greatest words that were ever spoken, ever, was when Jesus was on the cross, and the people that persecuted him, and he looked up to heaven to his Father, and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And if Jesus can forgive, you know, those that persecuted him, who are we not to forgive? No, we may not forget, but we have to forgive. And I've certainly forgiven my brother. Hey, people have forgiven me for things, you know, so I think we have to have that attitude.
And I would write that down. There's going to be a deep wounding that happens in our life. If you live long enough, it's either going to be in a dating relationship or a marriage or a wayward child or something. But the words, those 10 words, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's your hope. That's my hope. But it's also how God can knit a community of people together that have done a lot of wrong things, sometimes against one another. And we're supposed to be difference in the world, right? So the world is cancel culture. The church is redeemed culture. And so we've got to let that love of God flow back and forth. And when I was reading that, I think your wife invited him to your big birthday party. I mean,
that's how it. He didn't know what attitude I was going to take with him because we had phone conversation, and I had a birthday party, and my wife invited him to the party, and I was extremely emotional. But and that was 3 years ago, and you know we've been in touch closely ever since.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow!
So my wife is she's pretty special. Yeah.
What's her name?
Camille.
And how long have y'all been married?
39 years.
Congrats, buddy.
Thank
I'm going to get a clap on that. Kids and grandkids, what does that look like?
I have 7 kids. I was married once before for a short time, and we had 3 kids in 3 years. and then I have 4 with Camille. So I have 7, and I have 7 grandchildren, and I'm sure a few more on the way. Yeah, so.
Wow. Looking back, what advice would you give to a younger Michael Franzese or a younger man that's in this room? You know, what advice would you give a 20-year-old, a 18-year-old?
Well, you know, talking to myself, would I have gotten involved in the life again And unfortunately, the answer is yes, because I got involved really to help my dad. I didn't get involved in the mob to be a mobster. I got involved because I really wanted to help my dad get out of prison, which I did. I got him out after 10 years on parole. Unfortunately, he kept going back. He went back 5 times. That's how he did 40 years on the 50. And, you know, it was rough. So, you know, I probably would have gone into it again under the same circumstances. But, you know, one of the things I go into a lot of prisons. I have a prison ministry and a lot of juveniles. Because while I was in prison, I met a lot of young kids coming into the system, 19, 20, 21 years old, mandatory minimum drug sentences. In the federal system, there's no more parole. You get 20, 15 or 20, you get 20, you're doing 17 and a half, 85%. Very, very difficult for a young person to come out of that and go out and be a productive member of society. And when you listen to their story, you can write the same script for every one of them. I'm not kidding. Broken home, no father figure in the house, mom trying to do her best. Usually here she's got 2 or 3 kids just trying to straighten her own life out. I hear it time and time again. And so they gravitate to the local gangbanger, local drug dealer. Before you know it, they're in prison or, God forbid, something worse. So I used to mentor to them even before I became a Christian. But, you know, one thing I tell them now, I said, I think there's 2 important things in life if you want to get your life straightened out. And, of course, we're not speaking about the Lord yet. But number 1, in this world, we are who we hang out with. We hang out with the wrong crowd. We're going to be known to be the wrong type of person. Of course, they're going to influence us. You know, I always say this. You know, when I came to Christ, I didn't get a lobotomy. I don't forget the things I did on the street. You know, sometimes I get off a plane in New York, somebody looks at me the wrong way, I'm ready. It's like 25 years of ministry went out the street, and I'm ready to go. Yeah, it happens like that. You flash right back, you know.
That's why I'm not making eye contact with you anymore. Just done on that one.
You got to catch yourself.
Just going to look at that guy right there.
But, you know, so I've been very blessed, you know, that I've surrounded myself. I have a wonderful wife, wonderful family. My brother-in-law is a good man of God. He travels with me. He's my road manager. And I've surrounded myself with good people that keep me straight. Second thing is, who you are accountable to in life is going to direct the path that you're on. When I was on the street, I was accountable to my oath, accountable to my life, and I was a criminal, you know, and I thought I was doing the right thing by that code at that time. Now, had a lot of trouble as a result. Now I'm accountable to God first, and I have this God conscience. Doesn't mean that I'm not without sin, but whenever I'm going to do something, God pops into my head. Now, I may make the mistake anyway, but it's accountable. I'm accountable to my wife, accountable to my children. I don't want to put them in trouble again by me going to jail. Because believe me, I've had 25 years of ministry, but I make one mistake, that'll go right out the window and I'll be the mob guy again. I guarantee it, you know, because that's the way it is in life. So you got to stay accountable. So who you hang out with and who you're accountable to means everything in life as far as I'm concerned.
So how post-conversion, out of prison, and I know it's, you know, Camille's brother, Dean, you guys have had some of that type of relationship, but how do you do that? Like, how have you sought to develop healthy, godly, solid male friendships? Like,
well, listen, you know, I mean, I'm 73 years old now, so it's easy for me. You know, I know where I am in my life, and I've always been a networking type of guy. I've always had a lot of people around me, always made good relationships. Was part of what I think, you know, added to whatever success I had. You know, networking is important. And so I'm, you know, I don't have any trouble in that regard anymore. I know who should be with me and I know who shouldn't be with me. And that takes time in life, you know, sometimes you don't know. You know, look, when people ask me, what do I miss about the life? You know, do I miss the money and the power and all of that? Not really. A little bit maybe, but not really. But you know, really, what I missed, there was the camaraderie I had with the guys, because it was powerful. But you know, God is wonderful in that He's replaced that with the fellowship that I have with my brothers in Christ. And I have a lot of guys around me, and we're a solid group. And I don't mean like, crew. I don't mean that. But no, guys that I hang with and deal with are all solid Christians. And, we're regular guys, but we're regular guys with a love for the Lord. And it's a little different in that regard, So we make sure we do the right thing. We try.
Yeah, love it. What would you say has been a highlight post-conversion? What's one of your highlights?
There's been so many. I've been so blessed, Pastor. I mean, it's so rewarding to, I have a big YouTube channel. I have a big Rumble channel that we just started. But I have a pretty big social media platform. And, I get so many messages from people. Michael, you've had such a strong influence on my life. I read your book. I saw you in this film. And that's what keeps you going, because you realize that, what God has done in your life is reaching out to other people. And, I never get tired of it. It never gets old for me. And I've just been very blessed. I mean, I've had a lot of challenges, don't get me wrong. I mean, it wasn't, hey, I got out of life and everything's great. No. My dad wanted to kill me at one point. Persico wanted, I had a lot of trouble. So it wasn't easy to navigate, that road to try, look, when I got out of life, my whole plan was to do this very low key, but it all blew up on me. When you have a plan, God says, no, that's not the plan. You're going to get through this, but it's not going to work that way. So it all blew up on me. When I walked away from the Life magazine wrote a huge story that I was quitting the mob. It was bad. Everybody thought I was going to become a major witness and start testifying, because nobody walks away from that life. Normally they join the government, enter a witness protection program. I wasn't into hurting anybody. I wasn't going to do that. I would never, go against my friends back there, but nobody believed that. The feds were all over me. Franzese, you're a dead man anyway. Words all over the street. Cooperate with us. When I refused in that regard, they gave me a very hard time in prison. So then when I got out of prison, I had a lot of stuff that I had to deal with. So it was a rough 10, 12, 13 years until things kind of really settled down for me, and it's been okay now. But, if God lets you go through it, put you into it, you're going to get through it. That's how I looked, and here we are, very blessed. So I have a lot of highlights.
That's great.
I have a lot of them, so it's hard to say which.
Yeah, for sure. What is part of your routine to try to keep focused on the Lord and keep focused on what's most important in life? Do you have a daily routine in Scripture or prayer, or what? What does that look like?
Up every morning. I'm an early riser. I'm usually up by 5:30, 6 a.m. I don't jump out of bed and run around. I do my at least 15 minutes in the morning Bible study for myself. Bible study, I read a couple of verses. I have the daily verses that I read. I have it on my arm so I don't forget when I'm brushing my teeth and combing my hair. I always remember back, and I'll save this for later on. These verses had a bit real meaning for me. And then I go about my day. So, but I always start with little reflection on the Lord. And it's become a big part of me now. And, when you have a relationship with Jesus, this whole life is about a relationship with Jesus. But that has to be nourished and developed. So you do that how? By reading Scripture. A lot of guys tell me, Michael, I don't need to go to church. Church is in my house. And I tell them, no, that's a cop-out. Church is not in your house. Church is in church. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, very simple. You come and hear this great worship music. You give praise and honor and glory to our God. People think that you can come in late and miss the worship music. No, that's worshiping God. You don't do that at your house. And if you do it in the shower, it's not effective as you do it in church, right? So, you come to worship the Lord. And then you hear a great message from the pastor that prepares you for all the junk that we have to deal with during the week. Who knows where it's coming from, right? You have fellowship. You go in the lobby and you have fellowship with like-minded people. You join a small group. It's all very significant. So in doing that, you maintain this Jesus relationship where throughout the day, he just pops into your head. And you know that, Pastor. I'm not telling you anything different, but and many of you guys know that. If you're going to do something wrong, you think about it. You may do it anyway for a moment, but you think about it at least, because you develop that God conscience. But that comes by nourishment, like anything else. You can't just say, oh, I love the Lord, and then go about your business. Every once in a while, stop in and say, hi, how you doing? It doesn't work that way. So, and fortunately, like I said, my wife is a very strong Christian, and my brother-in-law the same thing, and all the guys that I hang with. I mean, I had a guy coming in here tonight. He couldn't make it. He's a partner and a dear friend, brother in Christ, who overcame a very wealthy guy, 6 or 7 automobile dealerships, but he overcame a brain tumor. He almost died. And the rehabilitation, he kept getting seizures on top of seizures. And I was going to bring him up here for like 10 minutes because it's an incredible what he went through and how strong his faith is. But he couldn't make it. His pilot got sick at the last minute. So he said, I can fly. I said, don't fly. You get seizures, don't fly. I told him, yeah, because he's a pilot too. So I stopped him from coming. But anyway, you know, so you gotta work on the relationship, and that's key. But, you know, and I have something special to say about Jesus, but I'm going to save it till later.
Yep. Tell me, I know there are things you've done. I've read, you know, enough. There are things you've done that you're not proud of. Mm-hmm. We've all experienced things we've done that if we could just go back and hit the rewind and delete that part of our life, you know, certainly we'd feel like we were more worthy of anything good that God may ever do in our life. But that sense of shame, I think the enemy uses. And so how do you practice? How do you keep, you know, like you said, you didn't get lobotomized, right? So how do you keep that fresh sense of forgiveness with the Lord? You know, because I'm sure there are things that pop back into your mind.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had, you know, listen, in that life you see a lot of things that are not good. And I had a very dear friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he baptized one of my kids. I baptized his. And he ended up getting killed. And I couldn't save him. And I feel responsible for it in a way. And it's haunted me. And it still does. As a matter of fact, my wife tells me, you know, I mean, I'm fairly blessed in that I can get through things pretty well. And that is a blessing. That's not a badge of honor. That's a blessing. We're all different. And my wife says, you know, I fight in my sleep at times. And maybe that's when things come out of me. I don't know. But that hit me very hard. I saw a lot of bad things, but that one hit me really hard. And I'll tell you how hard it hit me. About 4 years ago, I got an email from his daughter, and she was a baby. And it was a horrible email. It was like, because the word was on the street that maybe I was so close to him, I had something to do with it. And I didn't know how to respond to her. I had to just put it down. And then I responded to her. And she sent me an email back a bit later and thanked me and said, you have no idea what this email means to me. Wow. She said, but please don't let my mom know that I'm talking to you. You know, so, and that, you know, things like that are rough. They're rough. You know, they are.
Let me ask one more question, and then I think we need to move to a break. Let me pick one of these out. Yep. What's your thought on the current state of manhood, marriage, and dating? And pick any of those, but I've listened to enough. If you haven't gone to it, you ought to visit his channel. You're not going to agree with everything on it. You don't have to agree with everything on it, but you're going to know exactly what this guy thinks. He does not mince words, but tell me your thoughts on the state of manhood.
Well, I have 5 daughters, so, you know, we went through a lot of boyfriends, I would say, but to me, the state of manhood, Christians need to step up and be men, because what's going on in this world today is just, you know, I'll confess something to you, and I don't want to get political. I'm not going to do that, but my biggest challenge right now is holding in hatred that I have for some of the things that are going on. That's one of the reasons why I got on Rumble, because on YouTube you can't express yourself as much. because they want to shut you down. I've been shadow banned once or twice, but on Rumble you can speak your word. And I think the current state of things is so bad, and I feel an obligation because to those who have been given much is expected in return. And I believe that the sin of omission is just as sinful and maybe more sinful than sin of commission. Because when you see things going wrong and you have a platform, you don't do anything about it, they could get worse, and you're liable for that. That's sinful. So I try to express myself, but the state of things that are going on in the government now, when I think of, now I've spoken to 850 Border Patrol agents, state of Texas, right here. The things that they told me that were coming over the southern border, fentanyl and everything else. They showed me a block of fentanyl, and it was about 2 inches thick and maybe like this in a square. And they said, Michael, this can kill the population of the whole United States. And I said, this is coming over the border all the time. We're not getting any help. Now, I had a sister and a brother that died. I mean, a sister that died and a brother that was a drugged out maniac. You're the president of the United States. You know this is happening. 100,000 people a year are dying over opioid addiction and fentanyl poisoning. Because fentanyl, you don't have to be addicted on it. You can get a grain of salt in an Adderall. How many of these kids take Adderall in college just to stay awake to do testing? My daughters used to take it. And you know this is happening and you don't stop it? Guys on the street wouldn't do that. We would protect our neighborhoods. If you know that this is happening, so I have to hold in this horrible feeling that I pray about it. I said, God, I know I'm not, but man, I feel so horrible about this. I just can't accept it. So it's been a real challenge for me. So what I'm saying is, men, we have to step up and be men. We have to be godly men. Listen, every time a nation falls, what happens? The military gets weak, the economics get out of control, and immorality runs rampant. It's exactly what we're seeing in this country now. But we're spoiled to believe it can never happen to us, but it can happen to us. It absolutely can, and if we continue on the road that we're on, we're in trouble. So guys have to step up, and Jesus says, if you deny me in front of people on earth, I'll deny you in front of my Father in heaven. And we have to step up and be godly men. That doesn't mean we have to be abusive to people. We don't, there's a way to conduct yourself and communicate, but we have to be men today, and godly men. There's such a lack of it. And I think the church, in many times, is not vocal enough. That's just my feeling. I saw the other day when the Olympics put on that horrible display, mocking the Last Supper and Jesus. And people spoke out about it, but I don't think we did enough. I really don't think we did enough. We can't allow things like that to happen and just be so passive about it and just express ourselves once. It's just, I'm friendly with Andrew and Tristan Tate. I'm sure you know who they are. And I'm going to Romania to see them next week. We're sitting down to doing something, but Andrew is a Muslim. Did anybody know the Tates? You know who they are? I mean, they're the biggest people on, social media, but he's a Muslim, but he's out there every day peacefully protesting about what the Olympics did. And so is his brother Tristan, who is a Christian. And we should be doing more of that. We should not allow things like that to happen. I think Christians, in some respects, are a little bit too passive. And I think godly men have to step up and make their voices heard. And hopefully we do that in this election. That's what I'm hoping, but we'll see.
Well, listen.
I don't want to get political.
Yeah, listen, I was going to say, you go to visit them on Rumble or YouTube or whatever, and you can figure all this out. I want to say thank you just for coming here, answering questions, being completely straight with us, transparent. We just value that, appreciate that. I think I told you this on the Zoom call. Several years ago, I had the privilege of inviting Louis Zamperini to come here, and spent a day with him. Pastor Greg, had a dinner with him, and it was just an amazing, amazing, amazing time. And you're meeting a legend, and you're meeting history, and you're shaking hands with someone that shook hands with someone, and it's in that window. And I had that same sense when I was visiting as well with you, and not because all the brokenness wasn't broken, but it's an epic story to me that you're alive, right? You don't walk away from being a made man, and you didn't go to witness protection. Yeah. You didn't change your name. Your brothers had 5 different names in 4 different cities. At least I was trying to track it all in these articles. So I had 5 articles printed out, and I was like, okay, that's a name. He's in Indiana now, and now he's, So you didn't do that, and you're alive. I think that's a testament that God has put His hand of protection over you to show His glory to everyone you speak to around the world, and it's a lot of people. And so it's taken us 2 years to get you here.
I didn't know that, by the way.
Yeah, you're a hard man.
I didn't know that.
You owe us. No, I'm just kidding. Everyone jump him now. No, we're grateful to have you here.